I'm Alexa Carrero here with.
Nancy Gibbs.
So, you're guest speaking at our Stamford High graduation. Is this the first time you've done an event such as this?
No, I've given graduation speeches before, but we are pretty new to Stamford. We moved here last summer, and so this is the first time I will be giving a Stamford graduation speech.
You were the first female editor of Time magazine. How is it working there?
It was wonderful working there. I was back there yesterday because I still am very close to the people who are still there. It was a never ever boring, always challenging, always interesting. No 2 days were alike. One of the reasons I stayed for so long was there kept on being new things to do and figure out. So I always felt like I had the best job in the world.
Do you have any advice for females who aspire to break barriers in their own career someday?
I think there's a lot more good advice that is coming to women in understanding sort of how sometimes our own unconscious biases hold us back. And so the main thing I would say is obvious, but it's to believe in yourself and believe that you can do it, and that barrier will fall in front of you if you're working hard and doing well. And not there will always be things that hold people back, but we shouldn't hold ourselves back. And I think women sometimes do that if they don't think they're 100% qualified for something, or if they aren't absolutely certain that they'll succeed, they don't want to try. I see that much less in young women of your generation than I do from women in my generation. So I think you guys have this.
So in 2012, you wrote the book, The President's Club, Inside the World's Most Exclusive Fraternity. How do you think the current president fits this book?
That's actually a really interesting question, because unlike almost any other president, this one has sort of broken the informal rule about not criticizing the guys who had the job before you. And he's very critical. He's critical of Obama all the time. He's critical of President Bush, of both Presidents Bush. He's critical of Clinton. And so he doesn't really fit into that, the way that group of men have typically operated. So it'll be interesting whenever he leaves office about what his relationships with the rest of them, because they typically become friends with one another, and some of them become really good friends, having all been through this pretty grueling experience. They know what it's like. This president's different in a great many ways, so I expect those relationships will be different too.
So I heard that Trump was upset that he didn't win Person of the Year. Can you tell me more about this?
So he was upset in 2015. So think about it. He announced that he was running for president in June and sort of immediately dominated the news for the rest of the year. And so at the end of 2015, I didn't name him Person of the Year, and he was annoyed at that. But I said, look, if you win this thing, there's a very good chance for next year. And so, of course, he did win. And, of course, it really wasn't much of a close call in 2016 that he was the person who would influence events most that year. So we, went to Trump Tower a couple weeks after the election and shot the cover portrait and interviewed him about how he was thinking. And I do think he was still surprised at the outcome. I got a very clear sense of someone who really hadn't expected that it was going to turn out the way it did. And so it was a fascinating moment, because I had interviewed him during the campaign. I interviewed him later once he was in office, but that interview between the election and the inauguration, in a way, was the most interesting.
You had over 100 cover stories at the Time magazine. The September 11th story is probably the most well known. Do you have any others that stand out to you personally?
I think one of my favorites was, and it was also around a Person of the Year, I was lobbying very hard that J.K. Rowling should be the Person of the year that she finished the series, and made the case on the basis of the incredible impact those books had on. I would hear from parents whose kids had never liked to read, and it was because of those books that they started reading. They were a unifying force all over the world of people from completely different cultures and backgrounds and languages could find ways to connect with each other because of their love for those books. And so I got to go to Edinburgh and interview her about what it was like to finish. And she always just impressed me as such a remarkable person. And that one, the great thing about the job is you can kind of go meet anyone you want and interview them. And she was one of the ones I was happiest to get to hear what her experience was like.
Here with Nancy Gibbs. Thank you for spending your time with us.
Thank you.